still listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Sandra Ezekwesili. The 5 p.m. news update means that it's time for the big hard facts. So from now until 6, let's dive into the Lagos state government's ban on Okadas, on hailed bikes, on Kekes in various local government areas and LCDAs in the state. Now, normally at this time, I give you today's big hard fact. But today's big hard fact is a soundbite of the Lagos state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and what he said about Okadas and bike-hailing apps when he spoke at the platform last year.
But I need to also mention, to also solve the traffic issue of Lagos, where all of those options will be on a single ticket. I need to also mention, to also solve the traffic issue of Lagos, is also to talk about the Okada issue. Okada is everywhere, anywhere you see. So part of the things that we're going to be doing is not to leave anybody behind. There are people are currently using a system that is working for them, meaning that you see some Okada riders that are branded, that are using, smart pays to pay when you finish the journey. We're trying to harmonize all of them and be able to come up with a regulation system where we can account for every Okada rider. We will know who they are, we can manage them. So just so that we will know who they are, and when anything happens, in fact, the solution that some of them are bringing, they can actually disenable those Okadas, remotely. That's where we're planning to get to. But it's also something that we need to think through very well and be sure that nobody is disenfranchised. As much as possible, give everybody opportunity to play and to play well. I'm hoping that once we do all of this, right, the solutions around our traffic.
In the space of 3 or 4 months, because late last year in October, we had Governor Sanwo-Olu speaking so positively about Okadas and Kekes at the platform and talking about them as an integral part of the Lagos state transport solution. And now suddenly we have his government banning them in some local government areas and talking about how they are a danger and are not a part of the transport solution. Now, let's remember that before he became governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu campaigned heavily on transportation. In fact, it was the first point in his 6-point agenda. The T in themes is transportation. And when he became governor in the middle of last year, he brought in transportation consultants to assess the traffic situation and the various modes of transportation. And so when in October he talked about Keke and Okada so positively, a lot of people understood it to mean that based on all their consultations, they'd come up with a plan for transportation, and that plan involved bikes and tricycles. But now suddenly a reversal. And so my first question for you today, you who's listening to the show at home or in your car, which of Governor Sanwo-Olu's positions do you agree with? With his position from October, where he said bikes must be carried along, or his position today, where he says that there is no place for them in Lagos? I have on the show with me the chairman of the Transportation Committee of the Lagos State House of Assembly. He's on the phone, actually. I'm talking about Honorable Temitope Adedeji Adewale of Ifako Ijaye 1 constituency. He's the chairman, House of Assembly Committee on Transportation. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us on Hard Facts today.
Good evening. How are you today, ma'am?
Very well. So, in your capacity as a member of the House of Assembly and as a member and chairperson of its Transportation Committee, what is your opinion on this restriction on Okadas and Kekes in these local government areas?
Firstly, I want to say good evening to the people of Lagos. And I want to appreciate you for correcting yourself from changing it from the word ban to restriction. It was restriction and not ban. And what they've done, what the state government has done, is in the best of interest of the people. So what we have done is restrictions are placed on some roads that have been identified as flashpoints within the state. There was no total ban and there was no total restriction of bikes in the whole of Lagos State. That's what we've been hearing.
Okay. Now, a few months ago, though, we had Governor Sanwo-Olu speaking at the platform, and I played that clip before you joined the conversation on the phone. And he said that he wanted to carry Okadas along and that they were a part of the solution to the traffic issue in Lagos, but that they simply needed to be regulated so that every Okada operator could be identified and traced. Did you agree with his statement at the time?
Yes, I very much agree with the position of the governor of Lagos State. If you remember vividly well last year when he was at the platform with the clip you just played, he said regulations and regulation of Okada. We understand and we identify them as integral part of the transport system and sector, and we appreciate them that much. But then the first step to regulating them is this. This is what we've done. What we've done is in places where we've identified as flashpoints, we have decided to restrict movement, not in the whole of Lagos State. Afterwards,
can I ask what made what qualifies these places you identified as flashpoints?
Major roads, highways, and one of the most populated areas in the state that leads to major networking systems in the state.
Okay.
First of all, if you listen very well to the communique says that on bridges, highways, and many other trunk A roads, that the safety of lives and properties are paramount. So if we keep going by, why are they banning here and they're not banning here, or then why are they restricting here and they are not restricting other places? It's a gradual process.
But can I ask you, Honorable Deji, at some point in Lagos, we had regulation that said if you had a 200cc bike, you could be on these parts that have been added to the restriction now. And
That's
we
correct.
also said if you had helmets, you would be allowed to apply these routes. What has changed? Why did we decide to go back from this regulation as well?
Okay, so this law was made in August 22nd, 2012, where the enforcement of the use of crash helmets and the specifications for the bikes were actually made. But till date, only a few people have been able to meet the specification of bikes. If we keep saying the regulations are meant to be enforced, this is the first step to, like I said to you, the 200cc bikes are not banned or restricted on other roads. Just this particular one identified for the reason best known to the government is what is restricted.
Well, you're the government. That's why we're asking you the reasons.
Yes, I am a lawmaker. And I'm telling you, based on the points where the government is standing, they have chosen those roads to be restricted. 200cc bikes are majorly not even complied with. Majority of the bikesmen you see today that they are all around and making all the noise, they don't even have crash helmets. If we're talking about those who have been in tandem with the regulations, who did the branded bike.
But again, you also have startup bike organizations that complied with that regulation. Why were they included in the restriction?
Okay, so some minutes ago, the representative of each of the e-commerce startup bikes just left the office, and they came here and we spoke at them. And I took time to explain to them what the situation was. They also said the same thing that, oh, yes, they know they are being regulated, and the first step to do this is by complying. Then it gives room for negotiations with the government.
So you're saying that there will be negotiations to return the bikes to the streets?
The bikes are not taken off the street, only restricted in some areas.
All right.
Some areas.
So we have a situation where Lagos has a serious problem with mass transit penetration into inner roads. For example, there are no buses in many parts of Victoria Island. And now Okadas and Kekes are banned in those parts as well. In Apapa, we all know how bad the congestion is. And now Okadas and Kekes have been banned there. How do we solve the penetration problem on congested inner roads without bikes and tricycles, including the bikes that meet the regulation standards of the Lagos state government?
Okay, there again, I will say this again visibly clear, that before the bikes came into the space, the transport space, there was a way how things were done before. However, the law was created in 2012 and it was enforced in 2012. The law was relaxed in the last administration, which led to the explosion of the situations we have now. If they are trying to curb the unnecessary explosive situation, this is what we have to go through. For inner roads, the bikes are not banned on inner roads.
Inner roads of Victoria Island
roads,
and Apapa?
No. When
And
you talk about
Surulere?
the areas that were marked included the CBD, Central Business District. So for likes of Lagos Island, VI, Victoria Island, and the rest of them, they happen to fall within the CBD. And what they've done is there are small shuttles that have been operating. They have been operating over time that was at some point in time they were overshadowed by the need for the bike because of transport from point A to B in due time. Apapa, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Apapa also has the same problems, and that is what we are looking at solving at the moment. Except these bikes are taken off this road that are volatile, the situation will remain the same, and the transport system will not grow.
But we've had people question the timing of this thing. The state executive is saying that it's bringing in, for instance, 65 new buses to cover some of the routes where the restrictions are in place. Would it not have been preferable for the buses to arrive before the ban?
Okay, so here's the thing. The buses have already been in town. The buses are already in the state. The buses are already, some of it are already operating. What they've done is they've introduced new routes. The buses are in the state. The buses are in possession. The buses are on the road as of the moment. And the state government has done as much as acquiring 8 new boats to add to the fleet. And they're opening up new jetties for passenger routes now. So all of this is to work together to have the integrated transport system in Lagos State. What the government is trying to do is to open more BRT corridors and at the same time invest heavily on the water transportation, where you would have trucks or the heavy-duty trucks stop the usage on our roads and have to go through the water to move their barges, through barges to move their containers and the rest of the goods without them coming into state, so that they can reduce the travel time through traffic in the state. But it's a process, and we have to continue to endure. We have to continue to appeal to the people to understand that the government has the best interest for them. Though there is no gain without pain, or pain without gain. But we continue to assure them that the best interest of the people is what state government is willing to do.
Honorable Adewale, today a lot of Lagosians had to walk to work or wait for a long time for a bus or pay more than normal because this restriction occurred before alternatives were in place. Now, you say that there are more, that these buses are already here, that these buses are already plying, but we've got 65 additional ones and 8 new boats. We take a look at cities like London, for instance. A population of 8.9 million people, that's less than half of Lagos, which has 21 million. London's landmass is 1,500 square kilometers. London has 8,600 municipal buses. That's the red double deckers. Lagos has less than 1,000 BRT buses operating. So if you multiply our BRT buses by more than 16, that's where we get to the level of service delivery in Lagos. But until then, these danfos and these cabs and these kekes and the bike-hailing apps and the Okadas, they were filling the gap. Now, will the House of Assembly summon the executive to explain its full reasons for doing this before we had an adequate alternative in place, or are we just going to move forward with this and see where it goes?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it would be rather unfair to compare London to Lagos.
Oh, I'm comparing it because the Commissioner for Information was on the Morning Crossfire and he used London as an example.
Yes, so I'm saying I think it would be rather unfair because London has been in existence. The TSL, the travel system in London, has existed way longer than Lagos State. And if you understand what we're doing at the House of Assembly now is we're working on the transport sector reform law. And what we're doing is we're trying daily to improve just as much as we've started working on the railway lines. We already have the red line, we have the blue line, we've advertised for the purple, orange, and green line for private-public partnership, all to increase the number of participation in our mass transit program. We have the state government has budgeted for extra 200 boats that would work with over 78 routes, channelized routes on the water. We like I said to you earlier, we identify with the bikes. His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, mentioned directly, he said, what we're trying to do is to regulate. And part of regulation is what we're doing now. First, we have the total number of bikes we have that are registered are less than 7,000. The Max Okada, they have barely less than 1,000. They have 930. The Go-Kada have 960. Ope has a little bit over 5,000. But then the total number of bikes in Lagos State are above 300,000. So if we are having bikes above 200 cc's, less than 10,000, are we saying we're giving them the right for the other ones that are less than 200 cc's to ply our highways, major roads, and the bridges? This is what the Lagos State government is trying to achieve.
But you go to countries like Thailand, and you go to countries like India, and you have these bikes on the roads and these kekes on the roads. Why can't Lagos add that as part of its culture? What signal are we sending to, for instance, foreign investors who want to invest in Lagos, but who realize that the Lagos State government can wake up one morning and shut down their investments?
But you see, we keep making the same mistakes, and I think it's very important for us to also work hand in hand with the information sector as well. The state government is not trying to tramp on foreign FDIs or foreign businesses in the state. What we're saying is if you go to other countries, there are roads that they are trunk A roads and they are A1, that they are highways. The need for these bikes are so much that they can't even feel the need from people. If they go to Alimosho, they cannot complete the business. They don't have enough bikes to meet the demand. So what we're saying that on our major roads, our bridges, our highways, we don't want the bikes on there. It's for the people. We have to see beyond the bike owners or the business rather than the people.
But the people we've put out of work are also people.
But have they put them out of work?
Have we not?
No, we haven't. What we've said is on these routes, we don't want you there. You can find other routes too. That's the truth. So we have to stop painting they're out of jobs. No, the demand is heavy all around the state.
Okay. All right. We've had on the show with us the Chairman, House of Assembly Committee on Transportation, the Lagos State House of Assembly, that is Honorable Temitokwe Adedeji Adewale, who represents Ifako Ijayi 1. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria. Info has joined us in the studio, and we still have with us the safety expert that was on the show today earlier on Checkpoint.
Adenusi Patrick. So, great hearing discussion on both sides from the State Assembly. I will have to defend this, but whether or not they've been convincing enough, or whether all the actors
Let's find out from the people.
Were involved in the first instance, because that's been the problem here. The planning paradigm has often been you plan with the people, you don't plan for them. But so the jury is out whether this was planning with the people or planning for them. I don't know in terms of movement how people have been able to move around, saying that the plan B, working with government, was to walk from home to school and back within 2-3 hours. I'm a bit confused whether that was taken into consideration.
But he did say something important. He said that before the explosion of bikes in Lagos, Lagos found a way to, access all those inner roads without the bikes.
Ironically, the population of Lagos then isn't the same it is now. Adenusi Patrick and I were talking about this entire area where we're in is now commercial. So we had plans for a part of the town, but when we expanded beyond that plan, we did not expand the infrastructure. So when I hear this sort of argument, I'm a bit confused. What Lagos is that? Is it Lagos of 100,000 people? Or the Lagos of 20 million people, where the transportation infrastructure hasn't measured up? If I become the planning expert here. There we go.
Let's go to the phone lines. 012770993, 012771993, 012772993, and 012773993. We started the show by playing you that voice from the Lagos state government when he thought 3 or 4 months ago that the Okadas and the Kekes could be a part of Lagos's traffic solution. He thought that they are an integral part of the Lagos state transport solution. And now suddenly we have his government restricting them in some local government areas, banning them in some local government areas. They don't like that word, but it is what it is. If they cannot apply certain areas, they're banned from applying those areas. Let's talk to you. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for calling us. Good evening.
Good evening.
What's your name?
My name is Sandra, calling from Aghogho.
Go ahead.
Yeah, listening to the playback of the governor, he did spoke well, and the honorable as well. I went for an interview today, and I trekked from Sele to Eric Moore.
Oh boy.
There was a high level of sanity on the road, though it is not going to be easy at first for people generally.
You trek from Sele to Eric Moore.
Yes,
how often do you think you can do that?
Well, not regularly, but I think this won't last long. The suffering won't last forever. So we should try and endure and see from the point of view of the government as well. Okay. Because truly, there was a particular day that I took bike from Oshodi down to Sonya. I was just looking at my back every 30 seconds because the bike man was riding at the center of the express lane. You wouldn't believe it. I was even trying to tell him that I should come to the service lane, just move away from the center of the express, but he refused.
But then you have the alternative to go with the bus because that route Oshodi to Sonya, Sele, the buses ply this route.
There were no buses.
Okay.
So that was the only alternative. But notwithstanding, it's common sense. It's common sense for them to be safety conscious. So I think, though the government also needs to wake up to their responsibilities and provide some light rails in some places like Mile 2 to Oshodi, down to other places that can move people in mass.
Okay, thanks for calling us. The Honorable did say that Lagosians should endure a bit more. I wonder if Lagosians are ready to endure. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you. What's your name?
My name is Olomuyiwa, calling from Aja.
Welcome.
Let's look at this scenario. When the Okada and the Keke were finally banned, it will affect the company that pay tax to produce their oil. It will affect those that sell spare parts for them. And it will affect the mechanic. Now look at the generation that it will affect. Good, Keke or Okada is not alternative. But people are doing maybe carpenter, bricklayer, weather, co. And when there was no electricity and so many government policy of shaking them away from the road, they resorted to do Okada or Keke. So now my point is this. This morning, I've said it in one radio, that the normal places that they didn't ban Okada and Keke, they are still collecting the normal fee. But the place that they banned those Okada and Keke, the both are collecting now 300 instead of even 100 naira. Maybe you should help us beg government to make it a law that if we enter any bus and the bus driver exceeds that amount, maybe all of us should drag the driver out and call police to arrest them. They should help us. if they can't give us any alternative for now, let them give us mouth to tell the driver that if we say na 200 naira instead of 50 naira, we go call police now for you. Please help us beg them.
We're a capitalist state. We're not a communist state. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for calling. Put your radio down. All right. Hi. Welcome. What's your name? Hello. Oh, that's quite unfortunate. Okay. We'll take your calls some more after this break. We'll also talk to Patrick, who's in the studio with us. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
And I'm Aghogho Oboh.
Hard Facts will be right back.
It's very easy for these people to say NGO. I mean, I'm for the bike ban, if I'm being very honest. But they should have put things in place first before they did it.
Yeah, you said something about planning and development and planning. So what do we do in Nigeria? We develop and then the plan comes to meet it.
Yeah, you see, I'm with the Lagos State government 110% on this. If they can sustain it, you'll be surprised the gains. Where I think they should relax is from the hinter to the main road. However, someone is going to flout it.
So, for example, this Lagos, this marina, everywhere has been considered to be no-go area.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you have inner marina, you have outer marina. It's like this Victoria Land now. Where is people's access roads now become expressways?
Yes, the truth is the rate at which the Okada and Marwa
Welcome back to Hard Facts.
Here we are, Lagos, bringing you today's Hard Fact. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili.
And I'm Aghogho Oboh.
Okay, Patrick, what do you think about this ban? This is a conversation you've probably had several times since the announcement, but I haven't asked you and you haven't told me. What do you think?
Well, I think the Lagos State government has done well, sanctioning the riding of Okada on most major roads, especially the highways. I was talking to some folks about an hour ago, and I said on world roads, about 3,000 people are killed daily. Of the 3,000, Nigeria's official contribution is 14 daily. But WHO estimates for the number of fatalities we have on Nigerian roads daily is 100.
How many of that is bike? How many of that are cars?
Now, putting it side by side, before Okada, it was about 65. Before the influx of Okada, by the UN estimate, WHO estimate, it was around 65
accidents per day.
Per day. Death, not accident.
Oh, deaths
death
per day.
per day across this country.
Now it's 100.
Now it's 100.
So Okada is contributing 35%. Why are we not banning cars?
No, what? Like, is it globally? If you are inside the car and you are riding a motorcycle, the motorcycle is, you don't have any protection. The motorcycle riders don't have any protection. So they are referred to as vulnerable road users. So the motorcycle, the Keke, they don't have any protection. Any collision, you get straight to the rider or the passenger. So now, why are we not banning cars? We can't ban cars. By design, the cars were designed for what it is used for, except if it is overloaded, if it is going faster than the recommended speed. Motorcycles were not designed for passengers. It was designed for comfort. It's a mode of transport that, okay, for now, I've outgrown walking and I went into bicycle. Now I have outgrown bicycle. My next stage is a motorcycle, and progressively like that. But what we do in this part of the world is, aside from using it for transport, you see a rider with 2 passengers, you see a rider with 3 passengers. Now, as much as I blame the rider, I also would like to sanction the passengers.
But wasn't that necessity that birthed that? I mean, if there were other means that those passengers could have traveled, do you think that they would have boarded the bike?
Yes, they would. I mean, look, Nigeria is not the only country of the world. I went to the village for Christmas, and in the village, some areas they have public transport, and major parts don't have public transport. So you have to live. If you live in the area where you don't have public transport, you must own a car or you have a bicycle. Aside from that, you walk.
Let me ask you something, because we talked earlier about planning with the existing system in a way that it means that people have embraced local initiative. If you take, for example, the way the BRTs came into existence, the reason for, and it faced huge protest, demarcating a lane for the BRT on the Ikorodu Road, because the governor then had argued that this was for the general public. More people would use the BRT compared to private car users. So we'll take some part of the road for the majority of the people. Correct. Public interest is what he said. If you look in terms of analysis of the people who use the Keke and the motorcycles are more in numbers than the Keke and the private vehicles put together. So take, for example, if you've been to Beijing, they have a designated lane for the rickshaws, for the motorcycles and bicycles. I know people would argue that the roads were never designed for Okada in the first instance, but because development has come to meet planning, why is it so easy to throw away this particular option, rather than work within the existing plan to make sure that it works?
Yeah, well, if when you look at the risk posed to the motoring public by this sector, you will sit down again and think about it. Now, yes, you just gave an example. In Beijing, in all other parts of the world, they don't build barriers the way we build barrier to demarcate the BRT lane. Ideally, there should be no rigid barrier to take the BRT lane. It should just be marking. One solid yellow line. You don't cross it. But government itself is sick. Enforcement is watery. What you said, do you know that as much as they even created a barrier to take the BRT lane, some people still drive in that designated lane of the BRT buses? In other parts of the world, the compliance is high, because they know that there are consequences for flouting it.
So is it the people's fault that there are no consequences in Nigeria?
There
for
are
flouting
consequences. Unfortunately, the enforcement agents are compromising, which now
So
leads
again,
to
there are no consequences.
endangering all of us.
So there are no
Yeah, well,
consequences.
the consequences is there.
Yeah, but if you're not
there.
enforcing it, there are no consequences.
Yeah, well, if you say so, I agree with you.
But what do you think that this ban will do to potential investors? I asked the Honorable the same thing, because you have somebody like Rotimi Amechi, who's the Minister for Transport, talking about this ban, and he said that Lagos should brace itself for the mass unemployment of the riders. He even suggested that some of them may turn to crime, and he should know. He was governor of Rivers State who banned Okadas.
Yeah, well, I'm shocked that he will make such a statement. To be modest, I will actually reprimand him for making such a comment.
Why?
Yes, he's the transport minister. What has his ministry done to improve transportation in Lagos? Forget the fact that there's a state government. Lagos is the economic nerve of Nigeria. What has his ministry contributed to mass movement or safe transportation in Lagos?
Is it the role of his ministry as federal government?
Yeah, the federal government has a role. Look, when Lagos is sweating, Nigeria is sweating. That's the honest truth. If there's peace in Lagos, to a large extent, the measure of peace in Nigeria is high. You see, he said, okay, Lagos should brace for mass unemployment. These guys will go back to where they came from.
But unless they're invited by the state government, the federal government has no say in urban mass transportation.
You see, there are federal roads in Lagos. Is Lagos State the one maintaining the federal roads? If the federal is the one that is maintaining the federal roads, there were times in this country where we had federal mass transit bus system. Buses were funded by federal and given to private people who then started paying back installmentally. You see, Okada riding and tricycle, they are children of necessity. But is it the risk and the injuries? One is going to say, oh, wow, this is so inconveniencing, it's painful. The same people that you are defending from being injured, the same set of people you are defended from being maimed, are the ones that are actually complaining that, oh, you have not left me to the lion and the hyenas.
Mr. Patrick, so because there's several actors in this whole thing, you know, if I remember Patrick Geddes, you talk about system analysis plan. So we've identified the problem, which is what we put a lot of venom in here. But there's a lot of anger at the solution which is existing. Say, for example, the Commissioner for Information Lagos State was asked a question. So you've identified the problem. You're dealing with this problem with the accidents happening on the roads and the security and the crime. What are you going to do in terms of palliative? I don't know why people use the word palliative. Alternative, in place of the Okada and the Keke. And he says, we are going to roll out 65 buses, 6 boats. In your experience as
that's 65. What is 65 buses?
Good. What does it mean?
What is 65 buses? 65 buses on one route. We won't even feel the impact of 65 buses. Now, is it one of the things that I think, yes, it is right for the government to take the position that they have taken, that, look, we don't want motorcycles and tricycles on our road. Excellent. One of the things that should have preceded that particular move is our improved travel time. We have buses currently. There are a lot of buses. But because of the way we use the road, the turnaround time is longer, so you have more people at the bus stops, which is where you see the motorcycle and the tricycle becoming useful. I gave an example earlier. When we on our way here, when we got to the law school, that from the law school point is a 3-lane road, not 4. But if you go to the law school right now, at the traffic light, you will see 5 lanes. If you get to Ademola Adetokunbo Junction, you will see 5 lanes. Go on the Lekki corridor, is a 3-lane road. Rarely will you find 3 lanes anywhere. That is because we are not using the road the way we should use it. It leads to us spending longer time on the road. The buses that would have gone to Aja drop passengers and is on his way back. I've driven Molo in Lagos before, so I understand the bus movement, how it does work. When there is traffic, we won't be able to move the mass we have capacity to move, and you now have more people at the bus stop.
So in your opinion, which is more important, the ban or the provision of the alternative? What should have taken priority?
The alternative should have been, first, government to ensure free flow of traffic by enlightening and sanctioning motorists that create multiple lanes. When we have 3 lanes and 3-lane roads, we get to our destination faster. Then you won't even need a motorcycle. Now, the buses that are joined in the traffic will be able to make more trips, and we won't have people stranded. But for as long as we take the motorcycles off the road and we leave the current private car owners and buses to use the road the way it is being used before, we will have a lot of people at the bus stop who will be suffering because the buses will not arrive back on time to be able to pick them. It is still not late. I mean, we've spoken to government time and again. It is one to speak. It is the other to act.
Now, you mentioned safety, and you're the safety guy. A lot of these bikes and kekes that run in the inner roads, what they do for people who have to go to work at 5 a.m. in the morning is pick them up and take them to the junction. Highway. Now, you have these people, men, and especially women, going to work at 5 a.m. in the morning, and now they have to walk along the streets. It already wasn't safe for them on the Okada. But now, are we not making it more unsafe for them to take that trip on their streets to the bus stop?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, the Lagos State Traffic Law 2012 puts it that Okadas should not ply the highways, but they were permitted to use the inner road. If we maintain that look, don't come on the highway, maintain the inner road, that will be fine. Lesser traffic, they contend less with bigger vehicles and even speeding cars. We have a lot of people who learned driving with Tokumbo, who's driving. Look, this morning as we're coming to work by Chevron traffic light, I saw a car with learner's plate, ran the light, and he now stopped close to running into a vehicle that is coming from VI going into Chevron. So I alighted and I walked to him. I said, why did you do this? Didn't you see the red light? He said he applied the brake and the brakes didn't stop. That the brake failed. So we have a lot of vehicles that are poorly maintained. So the vehicles also constitute hazard to the motorcycles and their passengers.
So why is it difficult to implement? Because I know we'll go on lines very soon, but I got a question on WhatsApp, but it was for the honorable lawmaker. This thing you said about the inner road. He says, I don't have his name, but he said, please help me ask the honorable member why the restrictions on Okada and tricycles at the Surulere local government and Koka Aguda LCDA, even the inner roads Shita to Lawansin and his environs, because there are no buses from Mortala through Surulere.
Yeah, people lived in those communities before Okadas came.
Yeah.
And our parents who lived there walked. There is nothing wrong with walking. Yes, believe me, I walk. There is nothing wrong with walking. The one that scares me, that I'm not very comfortable about, is the picture Sandra painted, which is actually the truth.
Truth. Very true.
Someone is walking from the inner road to the bus stop so as to join a bus. Right now, that he's even or she on a bike, she's not safe. How safe is she now that she has to do that walk by 4:30, 4:45, and 5 a.m.
Let me
or
also
5:30?
throw in the school children who have to get. I know people who say, for example, because of many schools provide buses for children nowadays. So they make arrangements with
it's actually illegal to have children on the motorcycle.
Now,
it's not acceptable
so they
at all.
put them on the keke. arrange, to move them from one point to the other. That is all gone now.
Yeah, even the Keke itself, in order of preference, I will prefer a motorcycle to a Keke. The Keke is dangerous.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. 01277 0993, 01277 1993, 01277 2993, and 01277 3993. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is Chief Andy calling in from Lekki.
Hello, Andy. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, the thing with the ban, let me start by responding to something your guest in the studio just said. There is something wrong with walking. The fact that our parents or grandparents had to walk does not mean that we today have to walk. In the same way that our parents and grandparents didn't have electricity, should not mean that we today should not have electricity also. The whole point of progress is to improve our lives and make lives easier. Then you add the fact that we are living in Lagos, the busiest city in Africa, and most of us have to leave the house by 4, 5 a.m. to get to work in time. And then even at the close of work, we end up having to spend another 3, 4 hours in traffic. The fact that I am spending 30 minutes walking in the morning and 30 minutes walking back at night is an assault on productivity. So we have to look at that. Then now, yes, we didn't have Okadas before. The reason we have bikes and kekes today is a simple inefficiency in market forces caused by the government. Here is a simple truth. All over the world, transportation is subsidized because we have seen that generally public transportation can never be run in a cost-effective way for the public while at the same time turning a profit. It is an iron law all over. And so serious cities invest in a public-owned mass transit system or a publicly subsidized mass transit system that keeps transportation costs cheap. And the city government or the state government is willing to absorb those costs so that transport is cheap, people can use the saved money to invest in business and the economy can grow. But now you have the situation in Lagos where the lion's share of transportation is in private hands because government for the last 40 years or 50 years or more has just not been bothered in investing properly in transportation infrastructure. So what happens in that situation? Most of the danfos and every other transit vehicle on the road has to turn a profit. Now, because they have to turn a profit, they are not going to go into these inner roads that your guest is talking about. The reason why is how many people can you pick up plying a small road inside Aghogho? How many people? The thing is, with the demand in the internal roads is that the demand is bigger than in the major roads, but the demand is spread out all over. Instead of getting 200 people on one big road, you're going to get like 20 people on 10 small roads. And so it makes it harder for an individual bus to turn a profit on those roads. Meanwhile, because all our buses are private, they have to turn a profit. So what ends up happening is over time, a gap develops at that lower level for inner road transportation. The only people who can fill that gap are small vehicles who are able to do rapid turnover in those areas. Enter the Okadas and the Kekes because of their small occupancy and also their small cost. So you see, this is a glaring marketing efficiency caused by government. And then private people stepped in to solve the problem as best we can. And now what is the solution for government? Ban them, restrict them. And then we are being told that because our grandparents walked, we should walk as well. That is not how it is done. Right now, full pressure needs to be put on government. Look, if we agree, we knew that Okadas were unsafe before we decided to start using them. The reason we were using them is that you've not given us a cheap alternative. Where is the light rail? Where are the orgy of buses? We should be seeing at least 16,000 buses in Lagos right now. Bring those first, and then we will solve the Okada problem. And then let us now talk about this idea of safety. If government cannot police Okada and Keke, if LASTMA and BIO and every other person on the street cannot make sure that Okada drivers are licensed, why should I suffer for it by trekking 1 hour every morning? Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling to share that. We've got so many comments on Facebook.
Right, let's get the comments on Facebook out of the way. Trekking things in Lagos today. Aliu Oye. We are really playing with right now by trekking from Idumota to Ojuelegba.
Is he trekking and watching?
That's some distance, but maybe we get maybe 1 hour, but boy, that's something. We have a government that is completely insensitive to the plight of the people it claims to serve. Okosun Benedicta.
You know, Aghogho, it reminds me of that caller who called in on the Big Three and said that he was visually impaired.
Yeah, the visual, yes.
And for somebody like that, the best mode of transportation for him, he said, was either a bike or a keke. But that today he had to walk a long distance to find a bus.
You see, unfortunately, we have the Okada and Keke. It is an insult to use that as a proper mode of transportation. That's the honest truth. But because we have things had gone down. Look, there was a time in this country only the privileged people had telephone. How did we leave them? Today, even your gate man has a telephone.
So how do we make sure that the blind person is safe?
General design, the general design and for care for the physically challenged people in Nigeria as a whole, not just Lagos, is -0. From our building designs to the road to the bus system, they are not even anywhere in our planning. So we may not necessarily just pick up one physically challenged person and make that the sentiment why Okada should be allowed. I will not join a bicycle that will drive a motorcycle that will take me on a one-way facing oncoming traffic. Look, it's easy.
So there's a problem with the enforcement.
Enforcement is sick. Government needs resuscitation. They need blood transfusion. Look, many things are just not in order. But you know what? The fact that I said, yes, our parents trekked. And so, yes, we should trek. The truth is we should trek. It's good for our health. A lot of Nigerians will tell you, oh, if you travel to the West, how many of them has really traveled and they see how things are done there? If you go to the city of London, you walk to the bus stop. Right here in Nigeria, some years back, we walk to the bus stop. So today, we have people, as you just open your gate, you hop on a bike, the bike takes you to the bus stop, you join another bus, or that same bike takes you from Yanokwaja to VI.
In that city of London, if someone stops you on the road and steals your phone, you can call the police and something will be done to find
yes,
that
it's
phone.
Done. That's not a lie, it's the truth.
So do we really need to? Do we really want to start comparing Lagos metropolis with London metropolis and
no, I mean, you know, that caller said in different parts of the world. Do you understand that? That's why I just use that as an example also for him to be able to understand.
Yes.
Look, listen.
So as somebody,
I don't ride motorcycles.
As somebody who has traveled and walked, I know how it is. But when you're taking that walk, you're not feeling like almost somebody will mug you. And even if you are feeling like somebody will mug you, you know that you will get justice if you call the cops.
Absolutely. Okay.
So how do we work that into safety for Nigerians who want to get from point A to point B here in Lagos?
I thought this morning and I said, how do people now walk safely to their houses? Now we need to now start walking in groups to avoid being harassed, bag snatched, being injured, maimed, and all of that. The risk is there, no doubt. Now, do we now say because the risk is there, we should allow more people to be killed and maimed? But there is the hidden one there. The hidden one is the fact that government has said, we don't want you on Third Mainland Bridge. We don't want you on Eko Bridge. We don't. So why would I, who already knows that government says Okada should not ply Third Mainland, take a bike and tell him to take me to VI?
We're going to have to leave it at that. This is a rolling conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're out of time. But Morning Crossfire will resume with this we will be on this whole thing until I assure you we can make some sense of whatever alternative has been put in place by the government. 65 buses and 6 boats. I mean,
Not
that's
enough.
Scandalous, you know.
Not enough. Lagosians are 21 million people. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. On Checkpoint today, Chukwudi was out at Obalende.
Dumota Market, the popular Martin Street. The fire aftermath 1 week after, to have an assessment of what is going on there. And Adenusi Patrick, from the safety point of view, also looking at open. The market story will continue on our different shows throughout this week.
As well. And on the Big Three, we told you that there were a few updates about coronavirus. Thankfully, there's no coronavirus in Lagos. We told you about Pastor Adeboye's protest walk against insecurity, and we brought your reactions to the Okada and Keke restriction to you. Thank you so much for being here today. I am online as Sandra Ezekwesili. Talk to me there.
Oboh on all my social media handles.
Those were your hard facts, Lagos.
Yalla, 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 yalla.
Hard facts will be right back.